people have a lot of complaints about, the state of the Afro-Caribbean diaspora, especially here, and we have bad attitudes and this and that and stuff. But I honestly believe if we knew our history better, we'd have a different perspective of ourselves. And therefore, certain things would not be happening the way that they are.
I'm Chantal Miller, proud Nivision and Jamaican, and founder of Island Girls Rock. On this podcast, we champion women of the Caribbean and its diaspora, encouraging them to share their stories in a space created to celebrate them. It's equal parts fun, informative, thought-provoking, and always engaging. Welcome to our tribe. On this episode of the Island Girls Rock podcast, we speak to Fiona Compton. Fiona is a London-based photographer, artist, filmmaker, and historian whose work explores the various disparities in representation of the Afro-Caribbean diaspora within art and mainstream media. In 2017, she launched her multidisciplinary project, The Revolution of the Fairytale, which celebrates lesser-known heroes from Black history under the nostalgic platform of well-known fairy tales. Plus, she's my friend, Fiona Compton. Hello, Fiona Compton.
Hello, Chantal. Thank you for having me.
Hey, girl, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm good. Cold, but good.
You're cold, but good. I know. It's not our time right now.
No, it's not our time at all.
Well, welcome finally to the Island Girls Rock podcast.
I'm honored to be here.
I am so happy to have you here. I'm going to try and not be your friend.
Okay.
I'm going to try and not know everything about you so that we can really have a conversation that introduces you formally to our Island Girls Rock audience and everyone else out there who we hope are listening. But first, let's start with this. What island are you repping today?
I am fully and 100% St. Lucian. Born and bred, born and raised, and left St. Lucia when after secondary school. But
okay.
Pretty much all my family is back home. I don't have any family here.
Right.
So home is definitely where my heart
All
is.
right.
So, yeah.
You are first St. Lucian. And this is our second season. Well,
I shouldn't be vexed with you for that.
Don't be vexed. Don't be vexed. Well, so Fiona, formally, you're known as a photographer, an artist, a filmmaker, and a historian, amongst many other things. And what I want to do today is to kind of dive into, what stories you're telling through all those different formats, because I know that you're a wonderful storyteller, but I'd love to know more about how you do that through each one of, I guess, your mediums, right?
Okay.
So let's start with photography, because I feel like that's the foundation of, where you sprung from, where Fiona Compton, the artivist, activist, and all these other things kind of came from. So tell me about that.
Okay, I think my journey kind of started in St. Lucia in secondary school. I wanted to be an artist and had a very romantic idea of moving to, big country and being this artist and living in this big loft and painting on big canvases and all this kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
And then you come to this big country, and as I think with anyone who has migrated to these places, you kind of get a big slap of reality, get a big reality check. Pretty much the moment you land that is not as glamorous as you thought it would be. And I had to reevaluate myself and think, okay, yes, I still want to be a creative, but how can I be a creative but still be able to thrive in a place where there are thousands of artists who are better than me, who have more experience, may have had a formal education that I don't have. It's in the arts and stuff.
Right.
So I reevaluated myself, and then I decided to become a photographer. So I went, and that's what I studied after doing my foundation at Central St. Martin's. And I went to London College of Printing, which is now London College of Communication.
Right.
And it was an interesting experience because it's very frustrating because there's very little representation of Caribbean people within my curriculum. And when I started to dig in terms of Black photographers, they were either African or Jamaican. And as much as, yes, that is a part of my story, is I could not relate fully to all of because that was their narrative, and mine is very different. The same way a Bajan would consider themselves very different from a Trini.
Right.
or, a Vinci will find himself very different from a Grenadian because their stories are very, very distinct. Even though we share a lot of commonality, we still have our own stories. And I think also it's, that I consider, the Jamaican culture has taken over the UK and has always been like the benchmark point of reference for anything West Indian. And I don't think that's a full or comprehensive and what's the word? Genuine and fully encompassing story of the Caribbean. It is one island. It is one island. So I started to get frustrated with that, and obviously they kept showing me all these great photographers who, not just I had to dig to get to find a black photographer. That was on my own accord.
Right.
My curriculum, they didn't cover that at all. There was nothing of that. So.
And when was this? What year was this?
I was at LCP 2002 to 2005. So it was just before the birth of digital. So I was still doing all the classical training in photography and large format and darkroom printing stuff. Yeah, actual film. There was no digital at all. No, there's all darkroom stuff and all of that. So I started to get more and more frustrated. I'm like, okay, yes, this is great. But what about, my people's stories? And I went through, I did my degree. And for my final project, I did start to tell my own stories and also kind of changing people's perceptions of what they think the Caribbean is.
Okay.
And I told the story of how much St. Lucians love country and Western music. And that's something.
It's not just St. Lucians.
Oh, the Bishops still love it on a Sunday.
Oh, my word. Oh, I won't even get into that right now, okay?
Right. So going into the history as to why. Why would you think people in the Caribbean kind of associate or have this deep love? It's a deep, deep love for music that is associated with, for looking for a better word, for like kind of people say of hillbilly music and Hicks and all this kind of thing within the southern U.S. Why is it that we have this love? You don't associate country music with black people at all, and especially black people in the Caribbean and small island.
How did it get there, right?
Right. So, I mean, these perceptions that Caribbean people, all we do is listen to reggae music and calypso and stuff like that, and just trying to change a perception that we have so many dynamics to our culture. It's not what you think. So that was kind of the beginning of that. So when I left uni annoyed.
Why? Why were you annoyed?
I felt annoyed because I just felt like there was no representation. There's no correct representation. There's always a struggle. And it just felt like any representation of blackness or even West Indian culture was very insular. So I said, nah, I'm going to be doing my thing my way.
Okay.
So
all right.
That's how I started.
With your photography.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel that you're contributing to the representation of Caribbean culture and history? How do you feel you're doing that through your photography?
Well, it started when I just said, okay, let me just start making, it was like an answer back kind of thing. So I decided to recreate Caribbean versions of very classic and some of the most famous artworks recognizable to anyone around the world.
And what year was that, Fiona? Because I know you've been doing that for a while, but when did you start?
I officially started that doing the recreations in 2010.
Wow. So this is before it became, because it seems that it's not, I don't want to use the word trend, but it's definitely a go-to now where people want to tell our stories. And when I say our, I mean mostly people of color, black people, using classical art. And it's almost a subversion of that. But you've been doing that since 2010.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So, that was, so that's how I started. So I started by doing things like I did a Mona Lisa, but I used a model from Trinidad. So she's black and Indian, so as they call it, Douglas.
Douglas, right.
And so like the background, I used like it was like a Caribbean scene, but it looked like it was just a replica of the Mona Lisa. But it had I always make sure that I put in different elements of the culture interwoven into the image, if it is the choice of fabric or if it is the earring or if the chair she sits on is made of bamboo or certain small details I like to put in. So I started with that, and I did the girl of the pearl earring. So it was the girl of the seashell earring, and within that image, which is my most popular image is that her hair is wrapped in madras cloth. And if you look at the history of the madras cloth and where it's come from, it's basically, it is Scottish print that was brought to India, manufactured in India, brought across to Nigeria, and used as a form of bartering amongst the Nigerians during the slave trade, and it's brought across to the Caribbean. So it kind of shows the almost like the triangle of the slave trade,
but the transatlantic slave trade.
Exactly.
It does. Yeah.
And the fact that we still wear it today, and it's also worn in Nigeria, but it's part of our national costumes and things like that. So there's a massive history intertwined into that. So I make sure that I use the madras cloth in a lot of my recreations and so on. So
I know that you've been doing, the recreations for quite some time, and there's also, you do the Duplicity series, which is a favorite, and you express yourself so beautifully through photography. So I'm interested to know when you transitioned into incorporating film into your work, and how did that happen and why?
Okay, I think film was always an extension of my work, because for my final project, the photography project, I photographed people in their country and western outfits in St. Lucia, but I also did a short film as well. So film was always a thing I wanted to.
When can we see this film?
Because it's on Vimeo. It's not the best, that was back in the day. Camera quality wasn't that good.
Yeah, it's vintage.
Yes, it's very student. That's what it is.
Okay,
but so film was always an extension. So with the Duplicity, that's always kind of telling my stories, because.
So tell our audience a little bit about Duplicity.
So the Duplicity is it's like one image, and there's many versions of myself in each image. So it's telling a story of like our life struggles and frustrations that we will have. So you'd find images where I'm sitting at a chair and I may be crying, but there's a version of myself giving myself tissues. There's another version of myself giving myself flowers. Then another version of myself doing my nails, and another version of myself lying on my own lap, kind of thing, and trying to comfort myself. And I think it's a many struggles. And even one of my most popular is like myself looking in the mirror, and I may be dressed in a very sexy outfit, but the image that I see of myself is in like a old tracksuit, and I'm crying, and I think that's the internal struggles that all of us go through. Yeah. So it's just kind of telling that. And I think that was because I had spent a lot of time on my own working from home. Okay. So therefore I had a lot of internal battles with myself, and that was my means of expression. So that kind of extended into with film as well. So that's how it was just kind of for me to be more creative with my storytelling.
Okay. The Duplicity series really resonates with you have a huge following on social media, and I've even noticed, because I'm all up in your business, quite frankly, that whenever you post a series from that, it gets a lot of engagement. Why do you think that is?
I think because everyone can relate to that. I think social media can be such a toxic environment where everyone is out here pretending like everything is cool, and we just, as we say, our highlight reel, Yes. And I think that I just felt like I didn't want to be a pretender. Okay. So how am I going to tell my story if I've just been balling on Instagram or whatever? And telling a story that other people can relate to, and for people to know that, hey, I feel the same way too. I look in the mirror, I don't see myself as this beautiful, amazing person that you may think if I post a selfie or whatever, and I'm getting all of these likes, but actually when I'm looking in the mirror, I'm not feeling that, or sometimes I may feel frustrated, or I may feel these things too. So I just want people to feel that, they're not on their own kind of thing. So that's the intention behind it.
And I know the Duplicity series is photography and film as well, but I really want to speak a bit more about your filmmaking. Because for many years you were like, I'm not a filmmaker. Yeah. I make moving images. I'm not a film. You are a filmmaker, so own it. And I know that, there's one of your films that's going to be part of Channel Film 4's upcoming, they're having a film festival of some sort.
Yes, 16 days of film.
Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, I made a film with Kamaya Lizette. She's a St. Lucian poet and educator and spoken word artist. And she just...
An all-round badass.
Yeah, she is. She should be your next Lucian on air.
Absolutely. Next year, man.
Yeah. She wrote a piece basically about abusive relationships.
Okay.
So it was, and especially emotionally abusive, and also kind of leading on to physically abusive, and also how childhood abuse can affect your adulthood relationships. So we did a short film called Silence. So I submitted it, and it was accepted. So it's great.
Where was it shown before?
It's been shown all over. It's been shown in LA. It's been shown in New York, in Washington.
You say these things so casually. Oh, I had a film.
Yeah.
It was shown in LA. And what? No, it was shown in LA.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello.
All right.
Brap.
I have to big
It was
up
shown
myself.
in Washington. Boom.
Yeah.
And where else?
In St. Lucia in Trinidad. It's been it's because you forget because you're not there. So it's like,
Okay.
But and in a few other states in America, like Arizona, it played in Iran, it played in Russia.
Wasn't it at the BFI?
Yes, oh God, yes. Thank you.
Recently,
and it screened at the BFI as well. So yes, that was
Well,
pretty
congratulations, Fiona. It's a short piece, right?
cool. Yes, it's 5 minutes.
It's 5 minutes. I have seen it. I think I've screened it at an Island Girls Rock
Yes, you
event
have,
before.
yeah.
And it's very touching, and it's in black and white, which I absolutely adore. Is this a public event, the film for?
No, it's a private
It's
one.
private.
Yeah.
So
I would have been inviting my whole crew.
Okay,
but
okay.
Yeah, I'll
All
definitely
right,
document
excellent.
it though.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about a project which I know is very near and dear to you, which encompasses many of your art forms, photography, film, design, and art, and that is the revolution of the fairy tale. So please tell us,
Okay.
summarize,
Okay,
'cause
I'll do my
that's
best.
a whole other show.
I know.
But please
Yeah.
do, tell
do
us
my
about
best.
the revolution of the fairy tale.
So when I was doing my recreation, so I did like the Black Mona Lisa and the Pearl Earring and Marilyn and a whole range of them. And I was thinking, okay, that's great. And because I'd been doing them for a few years, I started to think that I had to push the concept hard and push myself hard in what I was doing, and not just, I felt like I was being lazy. So I had done a Black Red Riding Hood. And then people were like, oh, you need to do fairy tales. I'm like, yeah, but I don't just want to do like a Black Cinderella and put like a Black girl in a dress. And, that's lazy to me, considering that I've been doing it for a while. How am I progressing? And one of my passions is history.
Yes.
Like Caribbean history to me is like riveting.
Which we're gonna talk about that.
It's riveting.
We're definitely gonna talk
I just
about
think
that.
our stories are so cool. So I was thinking, like, how can I get people? I cannot expect everyone to be as enthusiastic about history as I am. So how can I get people to care
Well, at least
about?
not the way that history is taught in schools and how it's presented. Yeah.
Exactly. That's not the way for everyone to learn. So I was thinking, how can I get people to be engaged in these stories? So I thought of using the fairy tales as a platform to tell some of these stories that I thought were really worth telling. So, for example, one of my favorites is The Wizard of Oz, because I read a passage and it was about how the Haitian Revolution started. And I think, as a whole, we've really not given Haiti as much love as we should.
And respect.
Because I think most people don't know about the Haitian Revolution and how important it was. And the fact they were the first free Black republic, the first successful slave rebellion. And, they were the first free Black nation, and they started to do their thing. So I thought, and what they started was their knock-on effect for slavery to come to an end. It all started with Haiti.
Yes. So
happened?
how did you relate the Haitian Revolution to the Wizard of Oz?
Right. So when I read a passage, it was about the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. And it was with this, what you could call him, an Obia man, a voodoo priest, whatever. And his name is Bookman. And people used to come to Bookman all the time to get his advice and his counsel and stuff like that. And then Bookman prophesied that Haiti would become free. And they had this big, massive ceremony underneath this big tree. And I started to think like, oh, this man, everyone is coming to this man, flocking to this man, you know, and underneath this big thing, big emerald tree. And I was like, oh, that's almost like the Emerald City. And all these people flocking to see the wizard. They're off to see the wizard. So within that, I found, the more I started to read, I was able to link many key figures from the Haitian Revolution. So, you know, Bookman's had a voodoo priestess on his side called Cecile. She became Dorothy in that way. And the fact that Toussaint did so much and was so brave and all these kind of things. He was the lion. And they had General Capois was this general who was fighting the French, and the bullets flying thing. He shot down his horse and he kept charging and wouldn't stop, to the point that the French had to stop. They did a ceasefire in respect to his bravery.
To his courage, yeah.
To his courage.
Yeah.
And, you know, they said, in respect to you and what you're doing, we're going to stop. We're going to cease fire for today. And they gave him a new horse. And I felt like, yeah, this man is running like he's, you know, he's made of armor. So he became the Tin Man.
Tin Man.
So it was, so that's how I'm kind of telling these important stories. Because when I started to read about them, I used to get so excited. So I wanted people to feel excited too. So.
I love that. So you managed to pull this project together, and you use creatives from around the Caribbean, which I absolutely adored. What I love about a lot of your work is that you showcase our talent the way that we know it, you know, because it seems to be like this small circle of people that understand that we are contemporary artists as well, and that we have people in the Caribbean producing absolutely stellar and beautiful work.
That's right.
And so you were very determined to use our creatives from home. So when you recreated The Wizard of Oz, you went to Trinidad and you used some of the guys from Freetown Collective. Y'all, please Google. Just Google Freetown Collective, because again, that's a whole other show. Yeah. You know, and the designers that you use for the beautiful costumes. I mean, just uber talent. It was crazy. And you made a documentary about the entire experience. And then when you went to St. Lucia, was that for Alice in Wonderland?
Alice in Wonderland, yeah, I did.
You did Alice. And what?
And Rapunzel.
And Rapunzel, you know? So you guys, please check out Fiona's website. We just simply don't have enough time to go through. But this project it's not just beautiful to look at, but it's a learning experience. It's almost an experiential traveling exhibition. And I do know that Fiona and a team of Caribbean creatives are taking this into schools across the Caribbean, starting next spring, summer in Barbados, I believe.
Yes, that's where we started.
And then traveling on from there and hopefully bringing the workshops to the UK as well.
Yes.
Because I know that you feel that there is a gap in learning and understanding and engaging with Caribbean history, especially where our history seems to be represented only from slavery and onwards.
Yes.
Which is why your Instagram page, Know Your Caribbean, to me is important. It's a very important hub. And from that Instagram presence, you've managed to finally have people know how amazing you are in engaging people with our history. And I know that you've done several talks. You know, you've done you did an amazing workshop with 100 young Black men quite recently. So let's talk about how the revolution of the fairy tale has now opened the world to Fiona Compton, the historian.
Well, I think one of the things is you could say, as we say, I'm ignorant. You know, that term.
I don't know about
that. We say that
you're hard-headed.
That kind of you hard-headed. Like
Right.
you doing things a certain way, and I guess I get that from my father. But it's like I said, when I'm doing this project, I want every single person that I work with for the Revolution of Fairy Tale to be from the Caribbean. So the designers, the makeup artists, the models, the music, videographers, the second photographers.
Everybody.
Everybody, down to my printer.
Yes, me know.
It's West Indian, right? To prove a point
Yes.
that we can produce
can.
amazing stuff.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. And we have to have a much more belief in our own and not always think that we have to always go outside in order to deliver a certain quality or caliber of a project or whatever. So that's one of the things. But within that, as it started to continue, and so as I started to continue doing more research and finding all of these stories, and like everyone knows, oh yeah, Black history, slavery, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, they're tired. And
Marcus Garvey.
Yes,
who I
Marcus
love and
Garvey,
respect.
right?
All of these people.
And we love and respect all of them, but I think
However,
it's an injustice
yes.
to keep regurgitating their stories every year because it devalues all the work that they've done. And if we understood that there were thousands of other people who did amazing stuff, we start to appreciate all of it instead of rolling our eyes every October in the
Very
UK.
true.
Okay, so I have started to find stories about, that there were so many slave rebellions, so many. So they listen, slavery was like, oh yeah, 400 years, just beaten Africans, yeah, and then we let them go. No, it's much more complex than that. It's, they had a really, really hard time, and we really did fight. It's not the narrative that has been presented to us for all this time, and I think it's important if we knew our history, because people have a lot of complaints about, the state of the Afro-Caribbean diaspora, especially here, and they have bad attitudes and this and that and stuff. But I honestly believe if we knew our history better, we'd have a different perspective of ourselves. And therefore, certain things would not be happening the way that they are. So that's why I think it's so important that when I find these amazing stories, I just have to let it out and do it in a way that engages people.
So Know Your Caribbean, your Instagram page.
That's it.
This was because of just this, you're finding out. I mean, you've always been a historian though, Fiona, but I guess not a public historian.
Yes, that's
so
true.
that's what's made it different. And I think, when I see the reactions and the engagement on that page, it brings such a huge smile to my face.
People say, have said really beautiful things.
Absolutely.
I had a meeting yesterday with a filmmaker, and he said, Fiona, you don't understand how much this page has created such a dialogue amongst people, and is changing people's perspective about everything.
Good.
And especially among creatives who are frustrated that our stories are not being told.
Yeah.
And you don't understand the importance of what you're doing. And I was like, I'm really taken aback by that because, and I get so many messages of people saying, thank you, this is so, they never knew. And I never knew before me posting it. It's not like I have this decades of historical research.
Right.
As soon as I learn something,
You're sharing it.
I share it because I want people to feel the same thing I do when I've read it.
Okay. So let's talk about Black History Month. Let's talk about Black History Month and a few of the talks that you did regarding history and your love for history and how our history is represented. I want to talk about I think it was the last talk that you did with 100, I think it was 100 young Black students. How many?
It was I think close to 200.
It was close to 200.
Yeah, it was actually a girls' school.
And what you decided to do with that. It was a girls' school.
Yeah, it was a girls' school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not biased, but I'm just like, yay.
Yeah. I just basically, I started from pre-slavery. So I went from the Moors, and to speak about how basically the Moors came up from Africa up into Europe and educated Europe. That 99% of Europe was illiterate.
Okay.
Even kings and queens were illiterate. And then, the Moors came across and educated, and, just that we had navigators, that we had historians, mathematicians, and all these things that were brought across from Africa to Europe, and how we brought education and sanitation, teaching people how to bathe.
Imagine now teaching people how to bathe.
Yes.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yes.
But we won't stay there.
Okay.
But I just find that very interesting.
Take notes, okay?
But what was the name? Because I remember you were thinking about what to call this talk. So
yes.
let's touch on that, and then I feel like, unfortunately, we may have to wrap up.
Yeah, I call it negritude because negritude is a movement that started in the 1930s by Francophone intellectuals in Paris. And basically it was like a Pan-Africanist movement and stuff. So before the whole stay woke and all this kind of thing like that, there was negritude. So I called it that because the basis of my entire presentation is just to break the stereotype of people thinking that it was just Black people just beaten and whipped and, just oppressed, when actually there's so much more to that, and it's not just also... so negritude was how I said that. I see what you're saying. What it said was this. It's the main title of it was, we are not all descendants from kings and queens, and that's okay.
Say that again, please.
We are not all descendants of kings and queens, and that's okay. And the reason why is because I feel like anything that has to do with Black empowerment now is, you're a king, you're a queen, Queen of Sheba, Nefertiti, Selassie. And I feel like it's of course, these people did exist. Of course, these people did amazing things. Of course, there are beautiful kingdoms across the continent. But that is not our entire story. And for us to put aside everything else, all the regular men and women who did amazing stuff, we need to talk about them too. We shouldn't just glorify, royalty. What about everyone else? Because how can a young 14-year-old boy from Hackney relate to some Egyptian or Ethiopian or Sudanese king? Not really. But maybe if you heard about this young man who came from nothing and did this and did amazing things and stood up to these people and all these kind of things that so many people have done, maybe that can kind of inspire you a little bit more. Because I just think it's unfair for us to just kind of romanticize
and
our
exalt
history.
royalty only.
So what about the rest of us? Are we not worth, being valued or spoken about? So that was the basis of my presentations in the schools.
What I need you to do, Fiona, is to let people know where they can find your work, where they can get involved, and what you do have coming up next. Because I know there's something coming up real soon.
Yes, next month. Okay, so you can find me on Instagram, where you can see my artwork at Fiona758.
And what's the 758?
That's the St. Lucia Post telephone code. That's it called. It's a Fiona758.
758.
Right? And you can also, if you want to learn some more history, it's at Know Your Caribbean on Instagram. And I have a website, FionaCompton.com.
Can we hire you as a photographer? And
Yes.
stuff? Okay.
Yes, because I do photography and film events and portraiture and stuff, whatever, get creative. And next month, the Revolution of Fairytale will be screening at the Women of the Lens Festival. And so it's on the 15th of December. So if you look up womenofTheLens.com, they have a website and an Instagram and stuff, so that you can catch the film, see it all in full. So.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Fiona, that was a whistle stop.
Yes, it was.
Of Fiona Compton. But it's
so
been
much.
lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. And I'm so proud of you. I am going to be your friend now.
And I'm proud of you too. I'm proud of you too and all what you're doing.
Thank
so
you.
much.
You are not going to make me cry on my own show.
Okay.
Okay. So go it. No.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Fiona.
Right.
And guys, seriously, I mean, if you really want to know more about your history or even just Caribbean history, you don't have to be Caribbean to love our history. And yes, I said Caribbean.
Our history is very cool. It's very, very cool.
It's super cool. And we've got loads of history prior to slavery, y'all.
Yes.
Okay? So hit her up, Know Your Caribbean or Know Your Caribbean. That's an ongoing debate.
Let's not fight.
We won't go into that. Okay? Thanks so much, Fiona.
Thank you so much,
See you
Chantal, for having me.
soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Island Girls Rock podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us a rating, a comment, and tell all your friends about us. Catch every episode of the Island Girls Rock podcast by subscribing on Acast, Apple, and all good podcast apps. You can connect with us on Twitter and Instagram using IGR_love or with hashtag Island Girls Rock Pod. You can also visit islandgirlsrock.com to find out more about what we do. This podcast was produced by Unedited. See you again next month.